end of second part of Henry IV. I think I said the other day we'd spend maybe 5 minutes. Won't even be that long. So we left off with King Henry V banishing Falstaff on pain of death. Okay, and he says, I think we included this, but I'll back up for a moment. Line 66, very last, Act 5, Scene 5, line 66. For competence of life I will allow you, that lack of means enforce you not to evils. That is, I will supply you with an income to maintain your living, not to maintain your standard of living. All right? But so that you can get by. And as we hear you do reform yourselves, okay, the reform yourselves, that's not just, my mind's jumping to Hamlet. That's not just Falstaff. That's Falstaff, Bardolph, Peto, Pons, etc. He's providing essentially for all of them. As we hear you do reform yourselves, we will, according to your strengths and qualities, give you advancement. As long as you behave, but not just behave. As long as you improve yourself, rise above what you're used to, Falstaff et al., we will what? We will give you the ability to advance even more. He's essentially giving Falstaff what? He's giving him an opportunity to get back into his graces. Falstaff, if you behave, if you clean up your act, you start acting honorably, you stop stealing, you stop drinking, you stop whoring, you stop all the ings, what? You might even be able to come into my presence again. Be it your charge, my lord, that is the Chief Justice, to see perform the tenor of my word. Why does he give charge to the Chief Justice? Because he and the Chief Justice have already had a talk. And he's like, the Chief Justice says, hey, I did what I had to do to keep you in shape because I was ordered to by your father, the king. New King Henry, Hal, I'm going to call him for just a moment, essentially says, I don't bear you any ill will. I was a little, fill in your adjective. I acted poorly, etc. He doesn't go on and explain to the Chief Justice this was all an act. This is all so that people would see the real glorious me and all that. He told his father that. So, King leaves, and Falstaff addresses Master Shallow. I owe you 1,000 pounds. He goes, yeah, you do. Which I beseech you, let me have home with me. That is, give it to me now so I can take it home. Falstaff, that can hardly be. Do not you grieve at this. I shall be sent for in private with him. That can hardly be means I don't have it with me. But, I'm throwing in the but. Why? His next line. What does he mean? I shall be sent for in private. The king had to do this. He had to do this publicly. Why? He had to break with me to save face. But he's going to send for me. And when he says he's going to send for me, Falstaff is suggesting, I'll get the money from him. The king will front me the money. Okay? Part of what I think Shakespeare is doing here is Falstaff is suggesting his friendship with King Henry V will be like the friendships Richard II had with people. Richard II loaned a lot of money out. He essentially bankrupted the nation's treasury, which was one of the reasons why Bolingbroke not literally had to depose him, but kind of had to depose him. Shallow, that's not going to happen. He wasn't kidding with what he just said. I cannot perceive how. Falstaff, fear not your advancements. I will be the man yet that shall make you great. I cannot perceive how unless you give me your doublet and stuff me out with straw. Okay. I will be the man yet that shall make you great. Shallow. How? Are you going to give me your doublet and stuff it? Are you going to make me great like you are great? I beseech you, good Sir John, let me have 500 of my 1,000. Pay me 50 cents on the dollar what you owe me. Because essentially he's saying, and that'll be it. We'll call that even. I will be as good as my word. That's the problem to Master Shallow. He knows Falstaff's word is worth what? Absolutely nothing. This that you heard was but a color. That is, Hal was putting on a show for the others. A color that I fear you will die in. He takes color, and my gloss says, color to mean collar, hangman's noose. Could be, but collar is the same pronunciation as choler, the source of anger, one of the humors that fills the body, that makes people predisposed to certain actions. I think what Shallow hears is this is a choler, an anger, a humor that I fear you will die in, Sir John. That is, the king is going to act against you. Because we can infer, we can suggest that when someone acts against somebody else, they're doing it out of anger. Like spur of the moment. There's that kind of anger. There's also, quote unquote, righteous anger. What does Falstaff really deserve? He doesn't deserve his freedom. He was the, quote unquote, mastermind behind the Gad's Hill robbery. He deserves to be in jail. Okay? So, Chief Justice comes back in. Go carry Sir John Falstaff to the Fleet. I've walked, that prison still survives. It's a jail. On, can't remember the street, runs parallel to the Thames, on the south bank of the Thames. It's a very famous prison. All right? Pardon?
Penville prison?
No, not a big prison that you would think of, like a single building. Okay? I mean, you just literally walk by it. You go from, I don't have time to go into the description because we have to get in the habit. Look it up. You can find it on a map. So, go carry Sir John Falstaff to the Fleet. Take all his company along with him. That's Peto, Bardolph, Tuan. Falstaff, my lord, I cannot now speak. I will hear you soon. Take them away. Take them to prison. He's doing this on the king's orders. Why? What's the king showing to Falstaff? Think parenting. Tough love. He's got to get drilled into Falstaff's mind. I'm not Hal. I am now your dread. That was one of the terms that was used in Shakespeare's day to describe a monarch. The dread, your dreadship. Okay? Pistol. Prince John. Because John has seen this. I like this fair proceeding of the kings. Proceeding implies like this was a judicial happening. This was a judicial court almost. He hath intent his wanted followers shall be very well provided for. Okay? That is, he's got to be taken to Fleet, but he's going to be provided for. You know, if you were, give an example of another prison. A lot of people were sent to the Tower of London. Go to London today. Go to the Tower. It's one of the all-time biggest, tourist traps. Okay, takes a long time, usually during the summer, to get in, etc. It's really cool. Dates back to William the Conqueror. Right? A lot of people were sent to the tower. A lot of people died in the tower. A lot of people, Sir Francis Drake as an example, Sir Walter Raleigh as an example, lived decades under imprisonment in the tower because part of the tower had some of the nicest furnishings in all of London. They had servants. It's just they were imprisoned within the tower and could not leave. Others were imprisoned within the tower's dungeons and had horrible things done to them. Things that would make Joseph Mengele blush. Okay? Just absolutely horrible tortures. The king's going to take care of Falstaff, Prince John says. Now, bear in mind who Prince John is and what we saw Prince John do. Okay? Earlier when the conspirators gave up, reached a peace agreement, so to speak, and he had their men hunted down, took all of them under arrest. He hath intent his wanted followers shall all be very well provided for, but all are banished. That is, they cannot come into the king's presence till their conversations appear more wise and modest to the world. What conversations? God save thy grace, King Hal, my royal Hal. God save thee, my sweet boy. That conversation. Falstaff's got to wipe that kind of thinking out of his mind. Okay? Chief Justice. And so they are. That is, they will be well cared for, and their conversations will be amended. Prince John then says, the king's called his parliament. Why? Because they're telling us about the next play. Because within the year, the king's going to march against France. Okay? Then there's an epilogue. We're going to skip almost all of the epilogue, the final paragraph. One word more, because nobody wants to hear an epilogue. The play's over. They want to get up and leave. One more thing. If you be not too much cloyed, that is, stuffed to where you feel like you're going to get sick with fat meat, our humble author will continue the story with Sir John in it. Shakespeare is telling the audience, Falstaff will make another appearance. Why? He is one of Shakespeare's most loved characters.
Wasn't he Queen Elizabeth's favorite?
Queen Elizabeth, anecdotally, the account is, Queen Elizabeth loved Falstaff so much that she begged Mr. Shakespeare to write a play focusing on Falstaff, where he's the hero. According to the story, Shakespeare then writes The Merry Wives of Windsor, which is all about Falstaff trying to get in the beds of various merry wives of Windsor, and doesn't, okay? It's one of the comedies. Late comedy. Make you merry with fair Catherine of France, where for anything I know, Falstaff shall die of a sweat, unless already be killed with your hard opinions. That is, if you don't give us applause, Shakespeare's not going to revive him. He's not going to bring him back for a third thing. And when we do get to Henry V, the play ends with Henry and Catherine talking, Henry in broken French, because he doesn't know French, Catherine in broken English, and they marry. He dies that same year. I had a thing with me earlier. He becomes king in 1413, and he dies, I want to say in 1415. It can't be right. But I'm almost positive it is. Anyways, we're not doing Henry V. Unless, somehow God intervenes and we finish Hamlet early. Okay, go to Hamlet. One comment about papers. I don't know what's going on with me, why I'm taking so long. I honestly don't. One thing is, and I do this every time I get papers electronically, you'll make a little comment, like a little throwaway line. You're trying to fill out the paper, and something in my brain clicks on that, and I write a little mini essay in the comments. So when you get your papers back, you're getting a ton of comments, okay? Again, you're gonna be able to revise them. I said, 2 weeks ago, you'd have them back that week. I think I've got 4 more, something like that. You'll get them back this week without any problem. You just don't have another paper. Because this one, by the time you finish revising this one, you'll have done enough writing for this class. The Henry plays will be included in the final. The final will be almost entirely just Hamlet in those. I mean, there'll be maybe, 20% of the other plays, but it'll be more the background stuff that we talked about. And there will be extra credit, probably 20 or 30 points. A lot of that will be based on earlier plays and things like that. So the final exam will be primarily Hamlet and the Henry plays. I've got a bunch of quizzes already for Hamlet, so we'll start doing those. You had 1, 2 over Henry IV Part 1. You didn't have any over Henry IV Part 2, but you probably don't need those. Read the introduction to Hamlet, okay? I would really like to spend a class period just disagreeing with about 80% of it. Here's an example. Second page, 1092 in this edition, where Bevington writes, he's talking about, who's he talking about there? He's talking about few people know Hamlet's secret. The secret that his father had been killed by Claudius and such, okay? Top of that paragraph that's on 1092 left-hand column, for according to their own lights, Polonius and the rest, that is the other people in the court, behave as courtiers normally behave, obeying, flattering a king, Claudius, who has been chosen by constitutional process of election and can therefore claim to be their legitimate ruler. They do not know that he is a murderer. That's no problem with that. Hamlet, for his part, is so obsessed with the secret murder that he overreacts to those around him, rejecting overtures of friendship and becoming embittered, callous, brutal, and even violent. Whose overtures of friendship? Depending on whether you've read Hamlet before or how far you've read, that's alluding to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. The overtures of friendship are entirely false. Okay? There is no sincerity at all in Rosencrantz and Guildenstern and their befriending, again, Hamlet. Hamlet grew up with them, childhood friends. He hasn't seen them for a while. Hamlet knows when they come in, these guys are up to something. It is clear from the text. It's not just that Hamlet has become so obsessed with the secret murder. I'm not belittling that. Hamlet is obsessed. We are going to see how obsessed he becomes in not too long from now, okay? There are comments like that embedded throughout the introduction that just kind of make me go, really? Are we reading the same play? And maybe it's because I have become, in a sense, kind of obsessed with this play. It just, every time I read it, like an onion, you just peel back more and more and more layers, all right? His rejection, next column, towards the bottom, just before that new paragraph begins. His rejection of love and friendship, except for Horatio's, seems paranoid in character, and yet is at least partially justified, blah, 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 blah. That paragraph began, Ophelia is more innocent than her father and brother, and more truly affectionate toward Hamlet. True to an extent. we're going to see Ophelia becomes part of the plot against him. She is not an innocent part of the plot. She is a willing participant. She becomes a spy. Willingly, knowingly. Does she know what Claudius is up to? No, she doesn't. Okay? She's duped. But she willingly enters into at least that part of it. Okay? It's going to create problems. That's why the play is just, it just bubbles with meaning. Right? I might come back to other parts of it. One other comment before we open the play. Two other comments. Hamlet is a revenge tragedy, okay? It's a very specific genre. It's tragedy, but it's characterized by the need for vengeance. Dates back or has its source in Seneca, Roman poet, 1st century, whose tragedies all end with bodies piled on the stage. They have certain characteristics. Here they are. Somebody gets killed either at the beginning of the play or before the play opens. Okay? That person's ghost, the ghost of the dead person, then speaks to a surviving family member and says, "Avenge my death." Okay? So the surviving family member sees ghosts. That in itself could be a problem, And the ghost says, "Avenge my death." The entire rest of the play is the working out of that task, right? Shakespeare throws a wrinkle into it. A wrinkle that Seneca could not have. Hamlet's Germanic society is a Christian society. Seneca did not know Christianity. Wasn't a Christian. He's pagan. There wasn't a problem in pagan Rome with killing somebody who killed one of your own. Why? That's basic honor society, not, like Greek. Honor, where kill one of yours, you kill two of theirs, kind of a thing, right? Hamlet finds himself in this kind of dilemma. The ghost of my father tells me he was murdered. He was murdered by his brother. I have to kill now what? My father's brother in order to avenge my father's death. Okay. My uncle killed my father. Where does that take us to? That's an example of what? Cain, Abel. Okay? Cain and Abel. Younger one kills the older one. It also takes us where? 1992, 1993, Disney, The Lion King. Scar is Claudius. Mufasa is Hamlet Sr. Simba is Hamlet. It is entirely Hamlet updated. Hamlet shouldn't be read by children, by the way. Anyways, Hamlet finds himself, but Hamlet's Christian. This play, more than any other, I think, more than any other of Shakespeare's plays, I'll add this, that I've read. I've not read all 37 of them. Expresses, let me put it that way, the tension between Catholicism and Protestantism that was rampant in all of Shakespeare's lifetime. Shakespeare's born in 1564. Right around, just after that, his father, as mayor of Stratford, is ordered to whitewash the iconography off the inside of the church, in the Guildhall Church in Stratford. Why? Catholic idol worship. is what the Protestants taught. Okay? Catholicism, it wasn't about worshiping those. All those images were there for one reason. The vast majority of people could not read. And those were all biblical stories. They could understand what images speak. Because those images would often serve as sources for homilies and sermons and such. Okay? So Shakespeare is born during this period. He's born during, he's alive at the time, we don't know what he's doing, the Spanish Armada. Spain tries to invade. Catholics in northern England, Catholics like, for example, the Northumberlands. Okay, for those of you the Northumberlands, like in the Henry IV place, they were Catholic. They tried to help the Catholics take over England. The Percy family did. All right? All that. Shakespeare saw the laws passed that were that outlawed Catholicism. He saw the laws that made it illegal to be a priest in England, not practicing, not celebrating the Mass, not marrying people. To be a priest, a Catholic priest, within the confines of the English border was a capital offense. You would be taken to the Tower and executed without a trial. We had some happen, okay? Or they had some happen, right? You get elements of both of these in the play, all right? And it's almost like a battle between them. So, a lot of stuff going on in Hamlet, which is why it takes me at least so long to cover it. So it opens with, the play kind of opens with the list of the dramatis personae. Ghost of Hamlet, the former king of Denmark. All right? You can watch various productions, and sometimes the ghost of Hamlet is just presented as a voice. Okay? In Shakespeare's day, the ghost of Hamlet would be presented as a ghost. That is, there would be something on the stage. Why? Because very early on, we're going to see that something speak to Hamlet and do things. It's going to hold a sword. All right? More modern things kind of often will imply or suggest maybe it's just something in Hamlet's mind. There's a problem with that. Hamlet's not the only one who sees the ghost. Multiple people see the ghost. Okay? So, ghost, Claudius, king of Denmark, the former king's brother. Gertrude, queen of Denmark, widow of the former king, and now wife of Claudius. What does just that right there tell you? She's the widow of the dead king, and she's married the dead king's brother. In a quote-unquote Christian society, what is that considered? It's incest. You don't do that. Old Testament, that's fine. Book of Genesis. Have at it. More the merrier, you know.
Book of Ruth.
Pardon?
Book of Ruth.
Book of Ruth, okay? Polonius, counselor to the king. Laertes, his son. Ophelia, his daughter. He has a servant, Reynaldo. Notice, by the way, some of the names are Latin, Claudius. Some of the names are Germanic, Gertrude, Hamlet. Hamlet, probably, by the way, real person. Your introduction mentions Saxo Grammaticus, a Danish writer. Saxo tells us the story of Hamlet. That's Hamlet. Okay? And it's the bare essence of this story is the bare essence of Hamlet's story. There's a guy, a prince named Hamlet, whose father is killed by his uncle. And Hamlet gets revenge. Why? Because it's a Germanic tale. And in Germanic tales, you don't just get revenge. You get revenge like on steroids, man. Just a lot of people die. Shakespeare may have known this source. He may not have. We don't know for sure. There's talk, your introduction, I think, alludes to reference to a thing called the Hamlet. That this means the beginning, source. Okay? That there was a play kicking around during Shakespeare's early years. And early years, I mean probably in the late 1560s, 1570s, early 1580s, before Shakespeare's writing. That there is this source Hamlet. It's never been found. If this thing existed, it's buried in a library or private library somewhere, right? Thomas Kyd's Spanish tragedy is still around. That was around in the late 1580s. Shakespeare probably was familiar with it. He was probably friends with Thomas Kyd. All right? It's kind of the progenitor of the English revenge tragedy tradition. All right? A lot of blood, crowd pleaser, etc. No, I'm not going to go there. So, Horatio, Hamlet's friend, fellow student. And then you have a bunch of members of the Danish court, some Latin names, Roman names, some German names. Okay? Soldiers, officers of the watch. You have Fortinbras, Prince of Norway, and a captain in his army. So, Denmark, you've got Hamlet Sr., Hamlet Jr. Norway, you had Fortinbras Sr., Fortinbras Jr. You also have Shakespeare using the idea that is still used today. We use it, it's a metaphorical use of language where the term Norway is used to refer to a king. Just Norway said. How do we use that today? Washington said. The White House said. The White House doesn't literally speak. Washington speaks with forked tongue, because there's all different ideas. So you've got that going on in the play. It can make it a little confusing at times. And then you have a bunch of lords and such. Notice how the play begins. First two words. Who's there? Why? Now, there's an easy answer, but there's more difficult answers. What's the easy answer? What kind of person says, who's there?
A guard.
Louder?
A guard.
A guard. Somebody looking for something. I mean, if I hear something outside, if my lights go on, if I leave the motion sensor lights turned on the outside of my house, and they go on in the middle of the night, and I wake up and I go out, I might say, who's there? Usually, if that happens, it's a skunk or something else. Obviously, whoever this is hears something. It means somebody's on the lookout. Okay? What else can it mean? So, guard, lookout, what are they doing? They're looking, they're observing, they're watching. It's one of the themes of the play. What's another word for observing, looking, watching? If you're doing it clandestinely, if I can spell, spying. There's this idea of people watching other people. It runs throughout the play. Who's there? Nay, answer me. Stand and unfold yourself. In other words, don't ask me who's there. You tell me who's there. Long live the king. Now, long live the king, is that code? Could be. I mean, it would be pretty standard, pretty easy code to figure out. Bernardo, that is, yes. You come most carefully upon your hour. It's like, your shift starts at midnight. It's 11:59. You're getting really close there. 'Tis now struck 12. Get thee to bed, Francisco. In other words, I arrived on time. Go to bed. So we're told what time it is. It's 12 o'clock. For this relief, much thanks. 'Tis bitter cold, and I am sick at heart. It's bitter cold where? Out here. Where else? His heart's cold. Something's not sitting right. Have you had quiet guard? It's the source of not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. Night before Christmas, not a mouse stirring. That's how quiet it is. Good night. If you see Horatio Marcellus, the rivals of my watch, bid them make haste. That is, we're all three supposed to be watching. They come in. Who's there? Again. Friends to this ground. That is, we're not enemies to Denmark or to Elsinore. By the way, the castle is named Elsinore. What's the name? I had students. Last spring when I taught Hamlet to my lower division students, there was a question about where's the play set? And I'm not kidding, out of 2 sections, probably 10 students out of 40, I could tell they immediately got on Google because they all gave the same Google answer. And it was, I know that's not it exactly. It was something like Helsingborg. And that's because if you type into Google, where is Hamlet set, it gives this name of a modern town. And I was like, you cheated. And you all cheated the exact same way. It's, teachers have Google too, as I have to tell too many students. So, it's in Elsinore, which your play tells you at the beginning, and it tells you down here, Elsinore Castle. So, we're friends to this ground. In liegemen to the Dane, that is, we are sworn men to the king. All right? So, Francisco goes off, and Marcellus, Bernardo, and Horatio talk. Horatio, skipping just a bit, has this thing appeared again tonight? I've seen nothing, Bernardus. Marcellus, Horatio says 'tis but our fantasy, and will not let belief take hold of him. Okay, 'tis but our fantasy. Back to in the Midsummer Night's Dream. And what does, not Aphrodite, Queen of Amazons, Hippolyta, what does she say in response to Theseus' big long speech? But they all had the exact same dream. Can't be, okay? He won't let belief take hold of him, touching this dreaded sight twice seen of us. In other words, what does Horatio need? He needs to see it. One of Shakespeare's really great, the tragedies are all really great. There's not a bad one among them. Maybe Titus Andronicus. Othello. Othello's about a black man who has a white wife. He's a warrior. His name is Othello. And he's really jealous. Well, his right-hand man, a guy named Iago, convinces him that his wife is cheating on him. Okay? And he does it. The only way he can convince him is Othello says, you must give me the ocular proof. I have to see it with my own 2 eyes. The ocular proof turns out to be a handkerchief. Okay, I'm not going to give all the detail. He has a handkerchief that he had given to his wife that's a white handkerchief with hearts on it. His wife, he is led to believe, gives it to this man, a captain named Cassius. I think it's Cassius. He didn't, literally. But Othello sees Cassius with the handkerchief. Now, his wife dropped it. Cassius picks it up to return it to her. It's because Iago makes all this kind of occur. Othello thinks the fact that Cassius has it means his wife has given it to him. Because when Othello gave it to her, he said, this is symbolic of my love. This is symbolic of marital, erotic, conjugal love. The fact that Cassius now has it, he infers Desdemona gave marital, conjugal, erotic love to Cassius. It becomes ocular proof. It doesn't prove anything. This is Shakespeare showing 17th century, early 17th century, what? Our eyes can be deceived. Okay? Which is going to be a big thing in this play also. Horatio says 'tis but our fantasy. We're seeing things. Therefore, I have entreated him along to watch the minutes of this night. In other words, he wants to see it for himself before he can believe. Will not appear. Why? Horatio's worldview, the way he mentally understands the world, does not allow for ghosts. It does not allow for things that cannot be rationally explained. Okay? Horatio is almost always described as a Stoic. Okay? Stoic philosophy essentially taught two main tenets of it. One, only what you can see is what is real. That's it. Two, the best way to live your life is on an even keel. No real highs, no real joys, no great happiness, and consequently, no great valleys, no great sorrow, no great pain. Just go along on an even keel. And when you die, that's it. Your essence, your soul, your you dissipates into the ether. No eternal reward, no eternal punishment. Okay? Will not appear. Why? His worldview doesn't allow for the possibility that something like this can happen. Bernardo, sit down. Let us once again assail your ears. What does it mean to assail something? It means to beat on it, to charge it. We're going to convince you with our words, is what he's saying. We're going to use logic to convince you. Can you use logic to convince someone of something when they do not admit the possibility of it existing? You can't. Not at all. So, they start talking about it. Bernardo, line 39. Last night of all, when yon same star that's westward from the pole, that is, when it was about at the same spot as it is now, to illumine that part of heaven where now it burns, the bell then beating one, and where we're just told a few minutes ago, it's midnight, and the ghost comes in. Peace break thee off. Look where it comes again. And the same figure that is the appearance like the king that's dead, Marcellus says to Horatio, thou art a scholar, speak to it. Why does he call Horatio a scholar? Well, the dramatis personae said Horatio is a student. We don't find out where till later on. He and Hamlet are both students at the University of Wittenberg. Sometimes spelled with a U, sometimes spelled with an E, I don't really care. Okay? Famous university in Germany. Famous town in Germany because of something that happened on October 31st, 1517. The beginning of the Protestant Reformation, which we'll get to a little bit later. Thou art a scholar, speak to it. Now, my book has a gloss, line 46. Scholar, one learned enough to know how to question a ghost properly. How do you improperly question a ghost? One of my other textbooks, one for my intro to lit course, says he's a scholar because he knows Latin. And ghosts know Latin. Don't ask me why. The idea is, because he's a scholar and knows Latin, he can speak to it in Latin, which is the language of the church and the language of exorcism. Speak Latin. So, Bernardo looks not like the king. Doesn't it look just like the king? Mark it, Horatio. Mark means pay attention. Look at it carefully, Horatio. Most like it. It harrows me with fear and wonder. What does it mean to be harrowed? A harrow is a farming implement. You put it on the back of a tractor. Here, you put it with straps behind a horse and you walk with it. It's like a plow. What does it do? It breaks up hard soil. It harrows me. It splits me up with fear and wonder. Part of him is full of fear. Part of him is full of wonder, amazement. It would be spoke to. How do they know that it would be spoke to? Would there means wishes to be, desires to be. Speak to it, Horatio. They're like going, no, you first. What art thou that usurps this time of night, together with that fair and warlike form in which the majesty of buried Denmark did sometimes march? By heaven I charge thee, speak. So look at what he's just said. What art thou that usurps this time of night? Why does he say that the, whatever it is, usurps this time of night? What does it mean to usurp? To take over, to take control of, to take the place of. Well, what is it usurping? The time. How is it how is it taking time? Well, if it is a ghost, where does it belong? Not here. It doesn't belong in time anymore, right? Because the person that it's the ghost of is dead. Doesn't belong inside time anymore. When you die, okay, Boethian Christianity, when you die, the you that is you goes outside time. Because time's a construct of existence. You no longer exist within that earthly existence. Together, that is, and you usurp not only the time of night, but together with that fair and warlike form in which the majesty of buried Denmark did sometimes march. It's usurping the time of night, and it's usurping what? The image of the dead king. Notice Horatio doesn't ask, who are you? What are you? The question is supposing that this thing is not Hamlet Sr.'s ghost. It's something else. It is taking that form and shape. Okay? By heaven I charge thee. Now, if he were really a Stoic, he would not make that oath. Because a real Stoic says there is no heaven. There are the heavens, but that's not what he says. It is offended. How do we know? Because of the next line. The it is offended, and see, it stalks away. Those are verbal stage directions. Shakespeare's telling the people who put on the play, okay, so when Horatio says that, it needs to start marching away, stalking away. Not just ambling, Stay, speak, speak. I charge thee, speak. And the ghost leaves. How now, Horatio? You tremble and look pale. Is not this something more than fantasy? Fantasy, imagination. Remember what Theseus says. It does what? It apprehends. If it apprehends a joy, it comprehends a bringer of that joy. Okay? So, if it apprehends this image, rephrase that. If it comprehends a joy, understands, it apprehends, it reaches out and says there must be something that brings that joy. If it comprehends this image, what? There must be something behind this image. There must be some reality that is making this image take shape. Why? Because every image has what? This is both Shakespearean understanding of Plato's allegory of the cave and Plato's allegory of the cave. Every image has what? A source. A real thing that lies behind it. Okay? Horatio. Before my God. See, I don't understand why people say he's stoic, other than something he's going to say at the end of the play. Before my God, I might not this believe without the sensible and true avouch of mine own eyes. So that's kind of one. Those two together. Reality. Theme that's in almost everything of Shakespeare. The difference between the appearance versus reality. How something appears versus the reality behind it. Or if something appears, and what is the reality. Okay? Without the sensible and true avouch of mine own eyes. Marcellus. Look at the question. Is it not like the king? What's the most important word in that sentence? Like. Because what does that mean? It isn't the king. It's like the king, but it's not the king. Why not? Because the king's dead. Okay, the king's dead. They all know that. Horatio's reply. As thou art to thyself. Notice what he doesn't include there. As thou art like to thyself. You can't be like yourself. You are yourself. It is like the king as you are yourself. What's he saying? It's not like the king. Oh my God. That is the king. That's not an image. That is the king, is what Horatio is saying. See, they were saying, we've seen this vision. It looks kind of like the king. Horatio's like, you're wrong, guys. Such was the very armor he had on when he ambitious Norway combated. And there's that. That's Fortinbras Senior that he's referring to as Norway. So frowned he once, when in an angry parle he smote the sledded Pollux on the ice. What is this telling us? Horatio was there. 'Tis strange. Yeah. Two very emphatic and yet loaded, pregnant with meaning words. Marcellus, twice before this has happened. Jump at this dead hour. With martial stalk hath he gone by our watch. He's dressed how? Full armor. In what particular thought to work I know not, but in the gross and scope of mine opinion, this bodes some strange eruption to our state. This bodes. It's like a premonition. It's a foretelling. It's a prophecy. Another idea Shakespeare loves. Why? Because it's an idea we see throughout history. You know, I was going to use the example of Julius Caesar. What does, oh, her name just out of my head. What does Pilate's wife say to her before he finally turns Jesus over to the chief priests and such? Have nothing to do with this good man. I've had a vision, okay, about him. And he's like, I gotta turn someone over, okay? So, they sit down. Marcellus says, tell us, why are we keeping watch? They're just good soldiers. Theirs is not, to quote Tennyson, ours is not to reason why, ours is but to do and die. Tennyson writes in The Charge of the Light Brigade. Tell us why we have to keep charge, keep watch at night. Horatius says, I will. So he talks about, you know how the dead king, defeated by Fortinbras of Norway, he was pricked on by Fortinbras. That is, Fortinbras started it, Hamlet Sr. finished it. That's why they're now having to keep watch. Fortinbras Jr. wants to pay Hamlet back. Germanic feud system. All right? Line 99. Now, sir, young Fortinbras of unimproved metal, hot and full. He's not been tried in battle, and he's what? He's full of himself. He's like the character Hotspur. Hath in the skirts of Norway here and there sharked up a list of lawless resolutes, and he's going to, go out and challenge others and prove himself. So, Bernardo, I think you're right. It would make sense why the dead king would come in this kind of figure. 116, Horatio. A mote it is to trouble the mind's eye. Why does he use that image? Christ is asked at one point about judging others. And he says what? Before you pronounce judgment on somebody else, do what? Take the beam that is in your own eye out before you try to remove the mote in somebody else's eye. A mote, a speck of dust. Don't judge unless, those who live in glass houses should not throw bricks, essentially. So what does he mean? A mote it is to trouble the mind's eye. What happens when you get a speck of dust in your eye? What do you literally do? You initially rub. You know not to, but your body just does this. So that's a mote in the physical eye. Now put one in the mind's eye. What's the mind's eye? It's that part in your brain, maybe in your soul, that latches onto a problem. And then what do you do with it?
Worry about it.
Keep going. What does that worry turn into?
Anxiety.
Keep going.
Paranoia.
Paranoia, obsession. You just focus on it. Read Samuel Johnson's prose work, Rasselas or the Prince of Abyssinia. In that, this character meets an old man, and the old man has gone mad. And he went mad because he didn't focus outwardly, he focused inwardly. And not in the positive sense of focus inwardly. He had a problem that he wouldn't let go. And he goes mad because of it. In the most high and palmy, and he gives an example. In the most high and palmy state of Rome, a little ere the mightiest Julius fell, Julius Caesar, the grave stood tenantless, and the sheet of dead did squeak and gibber in the Roman streets. All that is actual stuff that historical sources said happened. Before, it was 2 weeks ago? The Ides of March. A soothsayer supposedly came to Caesar and said, beware the Ides of March. The Ides of March are March 15th. Caesar didn't listen. Caesar died. did squeak and gibber in the Roman streets, the stars with trains of fire and dews of blood, disasters in the sun, all these kinds of portents in the heavens, like the ones Glendower talked about at his birth, These were harbingers, preceding still the fates and prologue to the omen coming on. Horatio is saying what? Batten down the hatches, boys. We're in for a rough storm. Something bad is coming to Denmark. The ghost comes back in. I'll cross it, though it blasphemy. Trying to see. Yeah, this book has a gloss. Cross, stand in its path, confront. Okay, like star-crossed lovers. The stars are standing in the path of lovers. Though it blasphemy. What is Horatio assuming? Whatever this thing is, it has powers. It spreads his arms. What? 131. I don't know what the abbreviation SD stands for. His, its. The gloss says, 131, it spreads his arms. Okay, I get it now. The it is what? The image spreads his, what looks to be the king's, arms. What does that mean? What's the it? What art thou that usurps this time of night?
So it's like a puppet.
Is it a puppet? Is it a manifestation, something? The it is presupposing not Hamlet Sr. Okay? Stay, illusion. What is an illusion?
False image.
It's a false image. Is this a false image? What can illusion also mean?
Hallucination.
False seeing. Stay means stop right there. If thou hast any sound or use of voice, speak to me. So he's charging, giving it a command. If you can speak, speak to me. If there be any good thing to be done that may do thee ease and grace to me, speak to me. If I can do something that brings peace to you and grace to me, grace, that's heavenly grace, that's loaded theological language, God's favor to me, speak. So he's now given it two charges. Third one, if thou art privy to thy country's fate, which happily foreknowing may avoid, speak. If you know something that's about to happen, and by letting us know we can avoid that from happening, speak. Notice, by the way, that idea implies what? If you know something's about to happen, and you tell us, and we can make it not happen, there's a problem. Then how did it know that it's about to happen? If it tells us and we stop it from happening, then the ghost never should have been able to appear in the first place. Why? Because that thing didn't happen. It couldn't have happened. This is the problem with time travel kind of thing. But it was thought that some spirits could see, quote unquote, the future. That's the fourth one. Or if thou hast uphoarded in thy life extorted treasure in the womb of earth, for which they say you spirits oft walk in death, speak. Speak what? In that last one. Tell us where the treasure is. Okay. That's implying a certain level of knowledge on the part of the audience, which our 21st century audience doesn't have that knowledge. It's got to be explained. Shakespeare's audience probably would have understood it. What would be the point of telling people about the buried treasure. So that it is unburied and what? Given away, given out. The idea of the buried treasure is that it's been placed in the ground for the purpose of hoarding it. It's mine. Okay? Avariciousness. And because the person died with that gold hoarded, that damned the individual. And so, by telling people where you hid it so they can be freed, given away, that undamns then the person who died. Cock crows. It starts to go. Okay? Marcellus. Shall I strike at it with my partisan, like a spear? Okay. If it's a ghost, what good is striking it with a weapon going to do? Whoosh, it's going to go right through it. Okay? It leaves. Bernardo. It was about to speak when the cock crew. Horatio. I have heard, what? When the cock gets ready to crow, spirits that wander the earth do what? They have to go back to their confine. That is, they go back to their, either they go back to their bodies or they go back to where they await judgment. Okay? Marcellus. Some say, so Horatio gives one theory, Marcellus gives another. That season wherein came the Savior's birth, Christmas, this bird of dawning, the cock, the rooster, sings all night. And it's because of that at Christmas time, no dead spirits walk the earth. The spirit of peace, reigns. Horatio, I've heard that. I believe it in part. Here comes the morning, he says, let's go tell Hamlet. 1:02. What time is it? 11:27. Yeah, we've got time for this. Let's go tell Hamlet. 1:02. It is we don't get a description, just location, the castle. It should be something like a scene of state. That is like the East Room in the White House or the banquet room in Buckingham Palace. I mean, just this place ornate with decoration, pomp and circumstance. Okay? The king comes in, the queen comes in, Polonius, Laertes, Hamlet, all kinds of courtiers. Kenneth Branagh's version does a really good version of this scene. I mean, you got guys with trumpets blowing their horns, the whole 9 yards. I generally don't like Branagh's version. Version I like the best is the one I put a link to, Richard Burton's rehearsal version. It was a filmed trial dress rehearsal kind of. I think it was the night before it opened. Anyways, the king comes in, gives us a big long speech. Though yet of Hamlet, our dear brother's death, the memory be green. So, when did Hamlet Sr. die? Recently. The memory's green. It's not dry and fully dead. And that it us be fitted to bear our hearts in grief and our whole kingdom to be contracted in one brow of woe. Go back and watch, if you didn't watch any of it, videotape of when Queen Elizabeth died. All of Britain was contracted in one brow of woe. Yet, okay, so, though yet, Hamlet Sr. died, and we all mourned his grief together, his dying, yet, so far hath discretion fought with nature, that we with wisest sorrow think on him, together with remembrance of ourselves. That is, poor Hamlet died. We gave him the obsequies, the sorrows and such, fitting to him. But we, royal we, that is me, myself, and I, had to think of myself at the same time of my brother's death. What's he getting at? The whole point for his speech, at least the whole point for the first 20 lines. Therefore, that is, thinking of myself now, our sometime sister-in-law, now our queen, now my wife. The imperial, I love Shakespeare, just brilliant. The imperial jointress, jointed with me, with a defeated joy, with an auspicious and a dropping eye, with mirth and funeral, and with dirge and marriage, in equal scale, weighing delight and dole, taken to wife. In other words, we've done what with our sorrow? We've turned it into joy. I was sorrowing over my dead brother, but now I have a wife, my dead brother's wife. The we is all about, literally, he's talking about himself. But what does the royal we also always imply? We, the state, the kingdom. Nor have we herein barred your better wisdoms, which have freely gone with this affair along. We haven't outlawed your advice. We haven't outlawed your counsel, which has done what? Which has said what? Has freely gone along with this affair. Not affair, improper sexual. This event. What has he just said to his courtiers? These are the advisors. The reason, Polonius is there, the council, these are his cabinet. What have they said? Sure, great king. You and Gertrude ought to marry. Wonderful idea. Is this just he was getting their advice? No, he needed their blessing. Germanic society, time frame. It wasn't automatic that if a king died, it wasn't automatic that the king's brother becomes king after him. It wasn't automatic that the king's eldest son would either, okay? There was a vote. There were what are called the electors. That's where the United States came up with the electoral college. Germanic society had electors, all right? He is saying they did what? They approved the marriage. It's also implied they approved his taking of the kingship. Okay? Who should the kingship have gone to? It should have gone to Hamlet. Hamlet is of age. This isn't like Beowulf where, Hardred becomes king, but he's just a kid, and Beowulf, acts as king behind him. Hamlet's old enough to be king. Here's a question for you to think about. As you read the play, Hamlet's age. I'll tell you how old he is when we get to a certain point in Act 5. The play tells us how old he is. It's going to blow your mind. Unless you already know. Because when you read this play for the first time, you have no idea. So, he goes on. For all, thanks. Thanks for approving what I was pretty much going to do anyways. Now follows that you know, and so he explains about young Fortinbras getting too big for his britches. That's why we've got, guard keeping watch, etc., etc. So he gives commands to give to Cornelius and Voltimand. They're going to take them to Norway. They leave. He then speaks to Laertes. Laertes wants to go back to university also. Laertes supposedly about the same age as Hamlet, but I'm not going to say how old he is. Laertes says, I need your leave and favor to go back to France. Why? He's a student at the University of Paris. King says, Polonius is okay with it, it's fine with me. He says, go. Line 64. But now my cousin Hamlet and my son. A little more than kin and less than kind. Interestingly, this edition does not have in brackets aside. Most editions suggest that that line by Hamlet is not heard by anybody on the stage, only the audience. Why? That tells us Hamlet doesn't think well of his uncle. Stepdad. A little more than kin and less than kind. Hamlet responds in like terminology to Claudius. Now my cousin Hamlet and my son. Cousin here doesn't mean literal cousin. It means family relation, but not immediate nuclear family. Okay? And my son. That means immediate family. You can't be both. It's got to be one or the other. Hamlet sees that. That's why Hamlet says, a little more than kin, or more than just distant relation, because what kin are they? Hamlet, nephew to uncle. Okay? A little more than kin and less than kind. What does that mean, less than kind? That's odd.
Like, of the same kind?
Keep going. What's another way of saying less than kind? One word. No. Unnatural. Degenerate. D, away from what? Generation. Okay? Unkind means, what is this? Inside it is water. It's a bottle, right? Why? Because that's the kind of thing this is. What is this? It's a phone. Why? That's the kind of thing it is. Kind means its nature. What it was in its beginning. Now we could go all philosophical and go, really, what is this thing's real nature? Came out of the ground originally. Plastic comes from what? Which comes from, supposedly, I still don't understand how this is true, dinosaurs. Really? There's billions upon were there really that many had to come from something else. My thinking. It's oil. It's dead dinosaur stuff. Okay? So when you drink water out of a plastic bottle, you don't know what part of the dinosaur stuff is on the inside of a plastic bottle. I mean, it's really gross when you think about it. That ties in with Hamlet, by the way, because Hamlet's going to say some things later on. And less than kind means and less than natural. How less than natural? Cousin, son. Not natural. It's like, Oedipus. Hi, Dad, brother. You. Hamlet kisses his wife. Hi, Mom. Honey. You. Only when he finds out is it, you. So, how is it that the clouds still hang on you? What clouds? Grief. It's metaphorical. Unless, of course, he's like Eeyore in the old Disney version of Winnie the Pooh. Everywhere Eeyore goes, he's got that dark cloud raining over him. Okay? Not so, my lord. I am too much in the sun. Clouds? There aren't any clouds around me. What does he mean, I'm too much in the sun? Anybody know what Louis XIV of France called himself? The Sun King. Why? He was the sun to all his people. He was. Why did he use that image? What's another reason? Prior to Galileo, what did everyone think? Everything revolves around me. And it was his glory that lit up the people in such. Hamlet saying, I am too much in the sun. I am too much in the brightness of your radiance. Too much in the brightness of your glory. What's Hamlet really saying? I need to get the hell out of here. Darkness, clouds, no clouds around me. Hamlet's mother. Good Hamlet, cast thy nighted color off, and let thine eye look like a friend on Denmark. Do not forever with thy veiled lid seek for thy noble father in the dust. Thou knowest 'tis common. All that lives must die, passing through nature to eternity. Okay, cast thy nighted color off. Stage direction. How so?
Hamlet's wearing black.
Hamlet wears black. Nighted color. What else? Another stage direction. Let thine eye look like a friend on Denmark. Do not forever with thy veiled lids look for thy noble father in the dust. How does Hamlet walk around the castle? Head down. They look at him, and if he looks up at all, they don't see eyeballs, they see eyelids. He's not walking around like this, because he'd walk off the parapet or something. What's the 'tis common? All that lives must die, passing through nature to eternity. Who's she talking about? Her dead husband. And when did he die? When did he become unliving? Don't know exactly, but the memory is green. Hamlet, aye, madam, it is common. If it be, why seems it so particular with thee? Seems. Why does it appear to be particular to you? What's the thing that appears to be particular? Death. Like death in general. Seems, madam? See, Hamlet's a good student. He takes words and he takes them apart. Nay, it is. Doesn't seem particular. It is particular. Why? Because it was his particular father that died. It wasn't just the idea of father. It wasn't just fatherhood in general. I know not seems. 'Tis not alone my inky cloak, good mother. Why does he say good mother? He's being facetious. He's being satiric. What does he mean? Not good mother. Nor customary suits of solemn black. That is, it is a custom to wear black when one is in mourning. Nor windy suspiration of forced breath. No, nor the fruitful river in the eye, the tears, nor the dejected behavior of the visage, walking around with a frown, together with all forms, moods, shapes of grief that can denote me truly. Notice he doesn't say connote. What's the difference between denotations and connotations? Denotations are the literal dictionary definitions. Connotations are the meanings words suggest. Like, I'm blue today. Doesn't mean I've suddenly become a Smurf. It means I'm sad. He says, all these things, with all forms, moods, shapes of grief that can denote me truly. These indeed seem. Why? For they are actions that a man might play. Anyone can wear black. Anyone can walk around with a frown on his face. Anyone can pretend tears. But I have that within which passes show. Passes. It surpasses showing. It surpasses expressing. These are but the trappings and the suits of woe. And Hamlet introduces another idea. pretending? How much of the play involves this? Is anyone in this entire freaking play honest to somebody else? There will be scenes. There's going to be a humdinger where Hamlet puts Ophelia in her place. Okay? We'll talk about that when we get to it. See? One entire period, and we're not even through, not even halfway through. Act 1. Good grief. Yeah, maybe halfway. We'll get into Act 2 on Wednesday. So, if you walked in late, there is no second paper, just when you get the first ones back. And like I said, most of them are done. I'm just waiting until I get them all done, that I can send them all out to everybody and have you all resubmit them at the same time. That will be this week.